Hello ladies and gentlemen and welcome to Fallen London. Today we're going to be having a look at April's exceptional story, The Deadly Dapperlings. But as always at the start of a new exceptional story, I will warn you that there are spoilers ahead. If you want to play these yourself, you should become an exceptional friend. Not only do you get access to these exceptional stories, you get twice as many actions, a bigger deck, and more outfit slots and various other little benefits. But without further ado, let's jump in. A flyer advertises a vacant position at the university. It's printed on thin, cheap paper. The Benthic Engineering Club, the Deadly Dapperlings, seeks an advisor to sponsor us for the upcoming David Solomon's Investors Summit. You will assist us in completing our invention and organizing club activities. You may also provide non-essential but highly appreciated support in the form of general advice, cups of tea, or a sympathetic ear. This is a volunteer position. The successful applicant will be given full access to our equipment and lab facilities. Okay, we can apply out of charity. You would take a position, a cut below a substitute professor, but you are generously willing to contribute your sharp mind. We can apply for the university ties. You are already a lecturer at the university. This is a sure way to continue building your influence. We can apply for the lab access. You already have one, of course, but you'll have two, at least temporarily. Apply because you love teaching. For some reason, you enjoy shepherding students through the trials and tribulations of their research for its own sake. Let's go with university ties. You're certainly overqualified. You submit your application to the marked address and await positive results. You receive the results of your application within a day. An impressive turnaround, assuming you weren't the only applicant. The envelope is second-hand. Somebody else's address has been scribbled out alongside your own. It seems from the letter within that you were successful. You've been invited to meet the Dapperlings forthwith. Well, let's go to the club room. The acceptance letter contains directions to a small room on the Benthic campus. Their next meeting begins shortly. The club meets at the far end of the Benthic campus. The clubroom door is amicably open when you arrive. A group of 4 sits within, absorbed in their work. Most take a brief glance at you, then resume focus on the fungal-smelling device incredulously sat on their table. A third-year student, in a corduroy vest, is the exception. He springs up and shakes your hand immediately. "Ah, you must be our advisor. Welcome. We're thrilled to have you." He clears his throat. "We will appreciate your help with everything outlined in the flyer and a few more, unforeseen difficulties." Well, let's speak with the fervid inventor. The club's captain shakes with nerves or excitement. Maybe both. "Your application was excellent. Had there been a wide selection, you still would have been my top choice." He gives you a short, nervous laugh. Unlike the other members of the Deadly Dapperlings, he seems eager to talk to you. "I'm very happy to answer any questions you might have about Benthic's Engineering Club, or myself. Whatever you need to get acquainted with how we do things here. We will be working together, after all." So what's your story? His voice is full of youthful passion. "I'm a third-year paleomycology student, though I study modern organisms as well. I find it limiting at times." He gets a faraway look in his eyes. "One could start an entire fungal universe with colleges dedicated to various species. Those found within damp environments vary greatly from those found on spoiled vegetables, for example. And then there are such brilliant phenomena as the utter shroom." He nods to the device on the table. "Fungi have an inherent intelligence, so it seemed only natural to utilize them in technology. I have dedicated my time at the university to unearthing this potential. Mushroom-powered machines? Interesting. Probe his interest in mycology. Why the passion for fungi? My childhood home had a leaky roof. In the corner of my bedroom, a beautiful cluster of Pezziza domiciliana took residence beneath a persistent drip. Tending to it and studying it was my first research project. I even bought a cut from the colony to university. My whole room corner would feel empty without it. He smiles fondly. When I received my scholarship to Benthic, my preferred choice of study was obvious. My paleomycology professor has been especially supportive of my research. Okay, can you tell me more about the Deadly Dapperlings? How did the club come to be? Benthic did not have an engineering club until this year. Well, I'm sure some have tried to start one in the past, but it never stuck. I formed ours specifically for developing our invention, hence the club's name, after a deceptively poisonous mushroom. I can only hope a win at the summit will keep the club going after I graduate. So what is this invention? What does it do? Rather, what is it supposed to do? I've been calling it the mycelium network. It's a long-distance communications device. He takes a scrap of paper and begins drawing a crude guide. Fungi can communicate across vast distances. Our invention is harnessing this communication method as a way to send messages. At present, it runs perfectly about 25% of the time. It was 40 last week, but some unsavory company tinkered with it when we were away, and we lost some of the responsiveness. Still, a large improvement from last month's 10. He hands you a diagram to keep. The ink smudges your hand. Okay, let's go back. The other Dapperlings and the invention await. Let's speak with the club members. They don't seem particularly deadly, nor especially dapper, just a quiet gaggle of overworked students. Speak to the shy devil. As you pull up a chair, two of them take full notice of you. A girl with dirt-covered hands and a devil with round glasses. The last member has her hair tied back in a bun and does not look up from her scribbling. Alright, let's speak to the shy devil. A bespectacled devil, deeply engaged in his work just moments before, now fidgets in front of you. Even while muttering, his voice is deep and rich as any devil's. I don't care much for the competition itself, but I enjoy science. We're pioneering some fascinating discoveries here. The network could change the way we communicate within the city and abroad, and maybe even be used for transport. He looks at the device solemnly. This work is so much larger than one summit, and I wish whoever has been trying to hurt our chances would understand that. You can speak to the clever incendiary. The girl has fiery resolve in her gaze, making the eyes of the devil beside her look subdued. I don't give a damn about the science, and I'm thrilled we'll likely fail this competition. Her voice drops from a near shout to a conspiratorial whisper. But a long-distance communication device? Now that's interesting. Her gaze darts around the club members. They all know. They want me here because, like the best of women, I'm not scared of a few explosions. That seems fair. Let's speak to the stolid mathematician. The girl seems younger than the others. Possibly a second year? Her gaze remains fixed on her paper, littered with complex equations. I'm on the epigraphical mathematics track. Obviously I handle the club's number crunching. I joined because of some unfinished business with the Somerset Club's captain. You're not actually an academic counsellor, so I've got nothing further to share. Just talk to me if you need an equation solved. That also seems fair. Alright, let's go back. The fervid inventor tinkers with his invention. Now, what is this invention? The device's mushroomy aroma is overwhelming, and it emits a faint hum. The device is the size of a bulldog, and from its peat centre blooms a panoply of fungi. Wires are strung tightly around the caps like crudely wrapped presents. The wires reach across the table to a small potted white fungus, twine around its stalk, and run down into its soil, almost like imitation roots. The network is wary of you. We can see the invention in action. The fervid inventor nods encouragingly. To you or the device, you're not sure. A 50% chance, let's find out. You flip the lever. The cluster of fungi vibrate rapidly, like the wings of an insect, and the caps glow a rich violet. The potted fungus across the table remains unchanged. No response, notes the fervid inventor. That's alright, we may need to make a few adjustments to the wire positioning on the fungi. Possibly feed them more honey. We can inquire about the competition. Who are they up against in this Inventors Summit? Our greatest competition is also our college's oldest, Somerset's Engineering Club. The stolid mathematician scowls at hearing the name. They have ample funding and have won other innovation competitions in the past, the fervid inventor continues. Usually they flaunt their latest creation, but they chose to keep their work hidden this year. It goes without saying, we'd like to beat them. We can mention sabotage. A few team members have suggested that somebody is interfering with their device. Have people been meddling in the Dapperlings' affairs? They're subtle changes, but I notice them nonetheless. The fervid inventor dips his thumb into the pot soil and rubs the grit between his fingers. Soil additives that wither our receiver specimen, or knots in our wiring. We keep the club room locked when we aren't in it, but they still manage to enter. His brow crumples into a frown. My professor is a bit absent-minded, so it's possible they stole his keys. Thankfully, they have not smashed our work altogether. I would imagine Somerset is responsible. Not like we can or should ask, but if you can help us uncover whoever is responsible, we can start making real progress. Oh well, let's perform our advisory duties. While the Dapperlings continue their research, you can gather information about this year's summit and their Somerset rivals. The rival club is on Somerset campus, and the summit venue is on Watchmaker's Hill. The fervid inventor is right. Visiting both would paint a clearer picture of what the Dapperlings, your club, now are up against. So we've moved to Watchmaker's Hill. We should investigate the venue in Watchmaker's Hill. And we should learn more about the Somerset Engineering Club. Well, let's start with the Engineering Club. The Somerset club room door is closed, but crucially, not locked. When you knock and enter, the 10 members inside stop and stare, as if a stray animal has wandered into the room. The rival captain bears an immediate, striking resemblance to the stolid mathematician. They share the same eyes and angular nose. It seems the business they have with each other will never be finished. Well, let's speak with the rival captain. Her eyes are sharp, and her scowl is sharper. I don't recognize you. He looks you up and down, assessing your standing. Unless you're the post without equipment order, which you do not appear to be, you ought to leave. We are in the middle of our work. Okay, well let's watch the club at work. They have the numbers on your team, but do they have the intelligence as well? There's 10 of them, and they are busy working. But on what is unclear. Unlike the Benthic clubroom, there is no device on their work table. There's lots of papers covered in writing, some not in English. We can ask them about their invention. What are they working on? The rival captain scoffs. Right, like I'll volunteer that information. How about you attend the summit and see for yourself? I'm certain you'll find the display intriguing. We can bring up the stolid mathematician, her sister. It seems a reasonable, logical leap, but a sibling pair split between colleges is unusual. Half-sister, the rival captain corrects. Mum remarried a Benthic alum, and she was added to the family. I know she's only competing against me because her sullied blood meant she had to settle for the lesser college. Very immature. Well, let's sneak a look at their notes. Try to see what they are writing. At first glance, it appears to be some type of horological invention, with mentions of the methods by which moments might be measured and calculations on the passage of time. But there are other things, like the manipulation of order, that are less obviously connected to a school of study. A look at the invention itself would provide greater context, if you could find it. Okay. Well, we can't report our findings yet because we need to go to the summit, so let's go and investigate the summit venue, a quiet warehouse on a quieter street. The coordinator inside, preparing the space for the event. A cluster of chairs are lined up in front of a cleared space, and a line of tape separates the stage from the spectators. The front row sits rather far from the stage. Let's inquire about the history of the summit. What has the event been like in the past? The summit is a science display for students and recent graduates to honour the work of Sir David Solomons, but many submissions favour form over function, while they're still in one piece. Most explode. A few years ago, the top prize went to an unnaturally large carrot, as it was the only entry left intact. Let's ask about the rules of the summit. It seems a prudent thing for an advisor to know. What qualifies an invention for the competition? Anything that was invented, really. Of course, there are a few areas not allowed, nothing related to the surface, no inventions utilising unheard of or fringe sciences, but otherwise, anything goes. Let's learn about this year's competition. What makes this year different? This year's competition is crowded, likely because of everyone vying for the grand prize. It's much more than just a cheap trophy. Winners can look forward to a reward provided by a generous benefactor. Ask about the grand prize. What is the nature of this reward? But that is a picture of a master. Should we be worried? Probably. Oh, the nature of the program is confidential. I'm sure you'll understand. The coordinator rapidly changes the subject. Now, do you wish to help out with preparing a venue? We could always use more volunteers. A new and mysterious grand prize? How intriguing. The Dapperlings would certainly be interested in this information, if you can extract it. The coordinator sets their jaw. They can't meet your gaze. So we can either convince them, a secret from students maybe, but there's no harm in sharing with a curious adult. We can intimidate them. Nothing stays hidden from you, and you have many ways of ensuring this, or we can bribe them. They're not being paid to be here, but they could be. Let's convince them. The coordinator considers further, then sighs and beckons you closer. This year's prize is generously offered by one Mr. Iron. The winning team will be given a spot in the Gifted Youth program sponsored by the Iron and Misery Company. It's an exciting opportunity, and I hope you understand why it's been kept under wraps. No prize like this has ever been offered before. Okay, well, let's report our findings to the Deadly Dapperlings. The Gifted Youth program. The fervid inventor stares at the mycelium network as he digests the words. Well, I'm not sure all of our members would be keen on it, for obvious reasons. The clever incendiary huffs indignantly. But I think it could be an amazing opportunity. Funding would make all the difference for us, and it would open up many career opportunities after university. I do wonder about the Somerset invention. If you could determine what it is, we can better understand what we're up against. We should begin our work in earnest. The fervid inventor rubs his hands together eagerly. Our days until the summit are limited. We can stay in and work on our invention, head out for field research, or try to raise funds for the club. The club can also work on our own if you have further research you'd like to perform by yourself, you have limited time to help the Dapperlings prepare their invention for the summit. Most activities will raise the Dapperlings' progress, although some will be more effective than others. Some may also hinder or even erase progress. Enjoy the perks of your position. You do have research you would like to perform on your own. He should be fine without you. This will not improve or diminish invention progress. We're going to try and help them here. Perform field research in the Bugsby Marshes. Find raw materials to build out the network in the marshes. We can raise funds for the club. Perform activities to raise money for the club. Or we can work on the mycelium network. Stay in and work on improving the success rate of the mycelium network. Let's try and do some field research. The fervid inventor and the shy devil join you at the mouth of the marshes. The fervid inventor has his sleeves rolled up, notepad in hand. The shy devil shifts through a burlap sack full of beakers. You give them a few words of caution, namely to stay within your line of sight, and let them off to do their work. Let's check on the fervid inventor. The fervid inventor sits on a stump, looking around idly, trying not to stare at the squat purple Blemmigan. The Blemmigan holds a sheaf of paper torn from his notepad, skimming the words with unseen eyes. Then, in a swift motion, it rips up the paper with its tendrils, raining bits of shredded verse into the mud below. Whatever it has read, it does not hold it in particularly high esteem. It's rubbish, isn't it? The fervid inventor sighs. My lady, this Blemmigan is willing to compose a flattering poem we could give to the mycelium network, but only for a suitably impressive poem in return. I'm a scientist, not a wordsmith, but perhaps you could have a go. He holds up his notepad with a hopeful smile. Okay, we can write a nature poem about the marshes, an evocative tribute to the dangers and beauties of the place the Blemmigan calls home. Or we can write a paean of your admiration for this Blemmigan. It looks like the others, if not a bit stalkier, but you can write about its refined taste in poetry and the particular sharpness of its beak. Let's go with the admiration for the Blemmigan. The Blemmigan is a slow reader, perhaps purposefully. A tendril occasionally touches its cap or beak, though it's not clear if it's prideful or bashful. Before the quiet burble of the marsh becomes overbearing, it stashes the poem up in its cap and takes the notepad and pen from you. Begins to scribble. Bravo, my lady! The fervid inventor beams with delight. You must teach me sometime. You don't have the heart to tell him that the arts are not as easily taught as the sciences. Geniuses cannot be rushed, and the Blemmigan takes its time, but eventually rips the page from the notepad and hands it back to you. And it scuttles off into the marsh, taking the notepad and pen with it. Hey, we just got robbed. Time passes. The Dapperlings' research continues. The Deadly Dapperlings have exhausted their appetite for field research now. Oh, we could only do one thing, huh? What happens if I research on my own? Just out of pure curiosity. The marsh mud sucks hungrily at your feet with every step. You look for particularly crowded clusters of fungi and find a few past an abandoned sorrow spider nest. You scrape up samples of the surrounding soil. Through the dense foliage, you think you catch a glimpse of a particularly large rat's tail. Perhaps it's time to go check on your students. Okay, so we can go back. Let's try and raise some funds for the club. Perform activities to raise money for the club. The stolid mathematician shows you a budget chart for the invention. We've been running low for the past week. We won't get any business from Somerset, but running events around Benthic should work. I have some ideas as well, the clever incendiary chimes in. Not for the faint of heart, though. Okay, this sounds exciting. We can host a bake sale, a safe, though not particularly lucrative option. We can assist the stolid mathematician with setting up an auction. I've got a few things to donate, she says vaguely. We can accompany the clever incendiary to a clandestine meeting. We're meeting by the club room after the final lecture of the evening is finished. is all she says. They'll want to hear about what we're working on. Does getting funding from the revolutionaries seem like a terrible idea? Sounds like the most exciting option, though. The clever incendiary and a cluster of spectators wait inside the clubroom. Some spectators have the angsty immaturity of students, but others have learned to keep their inner furnace hidden behind a firm, stony face. "My lady," the clever incendiary greets you. He nods to the network. "I don't know how to work this thing, but I know the fervid inventor taught you. If you can give this crowd a demonstration of how it works and why it could be a groundbreaking piece of technology, they'll sure put funding behind it. Maybe I could just use my revolutionary connections with my renown. You're well known in revolutionary circles. You can convince them." Your presence is lauded as you drop the appropriate names and circles. You don't even have to turn the network on. They're already putting money behind you, with the promise of receiving the blueprints after the summit. Did I also host a bake sale? You help the club make all manner of baked treats and set up in the Benthic quad. The fervid inventor insists on mushroom-shaped biscuit cutters. Passing students, professors, and the odd ratus faber stop by to make a purchase from your stall. The latter often attempting a swipe before a firm glare from the stolid mathematician stops them. At the end, you've raised a modest sum for the network. Let's work on the mycelium network. Stay in and work on improving the success rate of the mycelium network. The two primary methods of triggering information exchange between network nodes are food and stress, the fervid inventor explains. The stronger a response we can provide, the further along we can progress this network. He bustles around the table. A few things. It will only eat non-living organic material. We've primarily fed it poisonous honey, but we may have spoiled it a bit, as it's become less effective with time. New tastes might yield better results, and be careful when stressing it. If the response is too strong, its self-defense mechanism is, well, it's to explode. He pours half a beaker of water into the pot. We hydrate it before working on it, but take care not to overwater. The network sits on the table, expectant. At the moment it's quite small and its luminescence is erratic and stiff. It would better fit in a museum of exotic art than a display of scientific achievement. A response without adequate temptation or stress seems unlikely. There's a lot of options here. We can feed the network some poisonous honey, a certain way to appease the network. We can feed the network a bottle of Moral Ways 1872. Would it be willing to cannibalize? We can hold a flame close to the soil. The threat of fire should wake it up. Verbally insult the network. They don't need ears to feel your vitriol. Whisper terrible secrets to the network. The burden of knowledge is heavy. Tear a mushroom cap off its stalk. Nothing is more stressful than a beheading. This will greatly stress out the network. It will lead either to a substantial increase in progress or an explosion. We can read it the Blemmigan poem, a flattering account of its groundbreaking potential. Or we can overwater the network, flood the soil with water and drown out the roots. This will always reduce invention progress. Or I could feed the network a sausage about which no one complains. What is this? Never seen it. Okay, let's start with the Blemmigan poem. You read the honeyed stanzas of the poem to the network. The network and receiver light up at once, in a more subtle pastel hue than usual. Perhaps a blush. The colour remains for nearly a minute before fading. I've never seen such a lengthy response, the fervid inventor exclaims. The stolid mathematician gives a hum of satisfaction as she records the data. A shame there's no department for mycologenes, clever incendiary remarks. Yet, the shy devil adds, quiet enough to miss. Should we see what happens if we give it Moral Ways? I'm curious. The wine sits on the soil untouched for a few moments, and then begins to soak into the soil until not a drop remains on the surface. The network twitches and settles, and twitches again every few moments, with the occasional flash of violet from the receiver. It appears confused and possibly a bit existential. A substantial response, nonetheless. Is that good? If I do it again, do we move on to getting to know you? Yes. It's getting to know me. We are in fact improving it. Is there something else we could do? I don't want to tear the mushroom off its stalk, or whisper terrible secrets. All these are just their chances. Let's hold the flame close to the soil. The threat of fire should wake it up. Our luck quality gives us a 70% chance. The network seems to shrink on itself as the heat warms its soil. And then the receiver flashes violet like a warning beacon. It's brief, but a response nonetheless. We were fortunate. I wonder if I give it honey. Feed the network some prisoner's honey. The network sucks the honey down with vigour and turns violet. Briefly, the receiver hums and flickers to the same shade. The stolid mathematician marks a single stroke on a notepad littered with them. It appears pleased, but not surprised by the offering. Can we tear off the mushroom cap? Can we try it? 50%? Cross your fingers. How bad can it go? Caps begin blowing up within seconds of the other, like miniature bombs, until lines of smoking stalks remain. The clever incendiary seems to be the only member excited by this response. Perhaps we can change course to artillery if the communication angle doesn't work, he suggests brightly. Whoops, I think I may have screwed it up. The network sits on the table, expectant. At the moment it's quite small, and its luminescence is erratic and stiff. It would better fit in a museum of exotic art than a display of scientific achievement. A response without adequate temptation or stress seems unlikely. The shy devil enters the room and comes to stand by your side. He does a double take when he looks at the network, working his way round the bench before disappearing beneath it at the other side. No, he moans. Not again. Well, call a meeting. Clearly there's been another case of sabotage. The usual buzz of activity in the clubroom is stilted, and the mood is somber. The fervid inventor hovers over the mycelium network like a worried father, whispering reassurances to it. Sabotage, again. The stolid mathematician gives a heavy sigh. They cut up a few wires before they were caught. Left the mushrooms, though. Bet they were scared those would blow their cover. Quite literally, the clever incendiary grumbles. It must have been after the last meeting, the shy devil says. I heard a noise, and when I came in, the window was open. I don't think, he shakes his head. With the summit upcoming, they're getting desperate. I suspect they will return tonight to finish the job. My lady, do you have any idea who might be responsible? The fervid inventor asks, his usually bright voice dulled by distress. We can blame the Somerset team. They're the most obvious culprit, or we can pin the blame on the Benthic faculty. The sabotage may come from within. Or we can suggest an external culprit. The Deadly Dapperlings could have enemies beyond the school walls. Let's try and blame it on somebody in Benthic. The clever incendiary immediately puts her hands. I know I'm the most likely suspect here, and I'll admit I've wanted to strangle the thing during some of its many temperamental outbursts, but I would have smashed it to bits if I really wanted it gone. Halfway is not how I do things. Well, unfortunately for the true saboteur, the Deadly Dapperlings have you in their corner. You offer to stake out the clubroom for them this evening, prepared to face the perpetrator. As evening falls, you tuck yourself into the supply closet of the clubroom and wait. The hum of the mycelium network is your only companion in the quiet. According to the fervid inventor, it never really shuts off even when unattended. And right now, even as you hide, you feel like it's watching you. Then there's a jingle of keys and a slow turning of the clubroom door's knob. The intruder enters the room, heading straight to the network. Now is your chance. We can threaten them. They are thin and scrawny. You can take them. We can calm them. You only wish to talk. Or we can catch them by surprise. Approach once they seem certain they're safe. Let's catch them by surprise. Once they walk past you, you bolt from the closet, close the clubroom door, and lock it. The intruder miraculously doesn't hear you. When you approach and grab their shoulder, they startle away from the network with wild, panicked eyes. They are much older than you expected. Certainly not a member of the Somerset Club, but hardly the appearance of a seasoned criminal. They have long, greying hair, a prey-like horror in their eyes, and they stink of wet fungus. They would be tall if they weren't curling their body into the shape of an apology. Please, listen. I have a very good reason why I'm here, pertaining to the fervid inventor. If you care for him, you'll want to hear me out. Okay, you have the saboteur backed into a corner, caught in the act of interfering with the Dapperlings' invention. It's time for some answers. Let's ask who they are. Likely not a student, but familiar enough with Benthic to have a set of keys. I'm a professor of paleomycology at Benthic. My best student is this club's captain, the fervid inventor. Please do not tell him about this. They touch the network with a delicate hand unfit for sabotage. I mean no harm to him, quite the opposite. I wish to protect him. They appraise you. You're the club's advisor, yes? Please trust me when I tell you the Deadly Dapperlings mustn't win the Inventors' Summit. The winning prize is nothing good. Let's ask about the dangers. What dangers would befall the winner? The prize is an internship sponsored by the Iron and Misery Company, but I'm afraid it's just a way for Mr. Iron to acquire their technology. Seeing as it's never sponsored something like this before, I assume it hopes the network will succeed, so it might use it. The professor is talking quickly. Words tumble over each other. Likewise, the club members won't just be temporary interns. Mr. Iron will suck them right into the company, work them to their bones, quash their innocent spirits. My student has so much passion for his work, it would break my heart to see that squandered if he becomes a cog in Mr. Iron's machine. But what is their history? What is their relationship with the Iron and Misery Company? I once worked on Damu Island as a funger at the Iron and Misery Company funging station. It seemed like a solid arrangement at the time, but a good use of my knowledge of fungi. Their eyes are downcast. Shameful. But it was extremely difficult to untangle myself from their family. I find employment elsewhere. They took away my younger years and part of my hearing. Even now, my ears still ring with the roar of machinery. As for their employee practices, well, they don't call it Iron and Misery for nothing. Well, what do they want? What would they like you to do? I will stop doing damage to the network. I don't like to sneak around like this, and I would prefer to have this off of my conscience, but I would like you to make sure they lose at the summit, preferably without drawing their suspicion, or Mr. Irons. I did tell the fervid inventor about my desire for him not to enter, insofar as I could, but he interpreted my discouragement as doubt in his ability to win at all. There wasn't much else I could do until you appeared. I don't expect your goodwill towards them to be enough, so I will pay you as handsomely as I can in exchange for their insured loss. They will be disappointed, but spared. That is all I care about. They nod to the door. May I leave? The professor has given you much to think about. The summit looms, and how you go about completing your goals is crucial. If first prize is all it is shaping up to be, it may not quite present the opportunity that the Dapperlings had hoped. Your choice here does not lock you into any one course of action. Okay, so the professor is right. The prize is a trap. The Deadly Dapperlings are passionate students with potential for bright careers. They need to be protected from a bleak future. The professor is wrong. Change starts from within. The Deadly Dapperlings would persevere, especially with each other. Or it doesn't matter. You took on this role for reasons beyond the club's success or failure. It doesn't actually matter what happens. Let's go with the professor is wrong. You could continue on with improving the chances of a win. The professor's experience is just one account. It doesn't have to colour the internship. Your students can and will handle a victory, and whatever lies beyond it. The coffers empty rapidly. The Dapperlings could do with additional funding. But I think this is a good place for me to end the first episode. So thank you all very much for watching. Please like, subscribe, let me know what you think. Your comments are greatly appreciated. And thank you again to the members who help support the channel. It makes making videos like this considerably easier. But as always, I'll see you next time.